So, you guys want to learn how to play Empire today? Hi, well, welcome to Warhammer 3 tutorial, I suppose you want to call this. For today, we're going to look at how to play the Empire and a brief overview of each of the Legendary Lords campaigns, of course. The kind of as mentioned in the past tier list, the Empire generally is a jack of all trades, master of none, combined force type of army with the roster. And I kind of just want to show you guys how I generally build an army. I mean, sometimes the builds will vary depending on which faction I'm fighting against, but generally speaking, I don't like to use multitudes of different units if I can help it. So kind of just look at the basics of the army here. I got 4 spearmen to hold front line. I got my 2 units of halberds, 2 units of great swords as my kind of special weapon, or special teams I should say. Which consists of 4 units, and then I got 4 units of handgunners for my range, 2 cav, and 3 artillery pieces, and then I would usually rock a hero or 2-ish. Like I said, depending on who you're fighting against, but generally this is kind of the army you want to kind of build towards-ish. Now you could say, why not use like a unit of halberds as your front line? Simply, they don't have a shield, so if you're going against factions that have a range, you're gonna get shredded to pieces. That's why I lean towards spearmen a little bit better, because they're also a little cheaper and they hold the front line decently enough. And obviously, though, this isn't how you build the army. I kind of said I'm here to make them look nice and pretty, but obviously, I like to build deep formations as well. And I did kind of throw a little Skaven army over there to kind of show you what I'm talking about when we get to that point. So pretty much when you have gunpowder units here, you don't want to stack them up right behind the infantry units for obvious reasons. They're going to shoot their guys in the back, or they're not going to shoot at all. Even if you're on the hill, like over here, they might still not shoot or shoot their own guys. It's depending how steep the hill is. Some hills are really funky in this game. But pretty much if you're using gunpowder, or if you're using like range and archers, you kind of want to do what we call a checkerboard formation, what the cool kids call it. And that's pretty much, you put your infantry in a square line here, drag them over to have some gaps. Be careful, because if you leave the gaps too big, the AI would kind of just pull through your lines and go after your range. And then obviously we're going to put our gunpowder right behind them a little bit. You give them a little bit of distance. If you put them too close, they're going to try to pull through, but if you pull them just far enough, the AI might not target them. Sometimes they will, sometimes they don't. Generally, monsters infantry doesn't care. They'll still try to go after that range. And this formation kind of takes a hot second to set up, but it's no big deal necessarily. Go like that. So this is kind of my first line. You'll probably stretch it out a little bit more if you like, depending on terrain. Formations usually depend on terrain. If it's a nice flat terrain, you don't have to really do crazy odd things. And then I like to have kind of my great swords or my more anti-infantry specialist unit kind of with the gunpowder line. So I'll put them either right here or right here. Kind of just stagger them off to the sides. So what the AI would do is they like to stretch their lines out as long as possible, no matter what army build they have, which is really annoying. They'll just stretch it out across the map. And so no matter what you do, they're always going to try to envelop you. So if you go with a range-based army, or even with some range, they're going to try to get you on all sides. So that's kind of why I like to put my my specialist infantry units on the sides here. So if a front line fails, I could put them here, or plug them in any gap that's about to fail. And they don't really get in the way. I mean, if they do, just back them up a little bit more. And if the front line fails, you can always pull these guys forward more and pull these guys back. So you can kind of stagger the lines a little bit. And after that, I just kind of chose the great cannons and the mortars, because it's kind of mid-game build, I would say, maybe early game. Stretch them along, if you got cannons, obviously you want to look for some better terrain, because they might Might shoot their guys in the back here a little bit. Be a big deal. Yep, I generally like to stagger these here. Let me just try to line it up for my OCD. There we go. And then I'll generally like to put my halberds or anti-large specialists kind of right behind the artillery. Sometimes I even have them facing backwards, depending what the army brings. If they don't bring Cavan, I won't have them facing backwards. I might have them like go at angles here, or even just kind of guard the sides completely. But the AI will try to get behind the artillery. And then generally I like to do like, you know, I split my cav 50-50 on each wing, depending if you have cav, if you have pistoliers, you know, whatever. I usually like to rock pistoliers and outriders. And then I'll generally have like a hero or anti-hero, and then a hero to support the front line. Which we'll put him over here because there's no person guarding him. Hey, your builds will vary. If you're going against like a orc spam army, you know, generally you want to bring mortars, anti-infantry. If they bring like a black orc build, you know, you generally want to go heavy on the armor piercing. You know, it's always nice to have a flyer hero of some sort. I just chose Karl because everybody likes Karl. Now my build order is a little different. Like I said, I do like to use pistoliers, and one thing you could do with pistoliers or outriders, but you know, usually you want to do with pistoliers because outriders really don't care what they're shooting at, is if the other enemy has a lot of cav or fast movers, you could actually put your cav right behind your gun line, and they'll shoot over them because they are always higher. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to like make a super noob square or whatever, if you have a lot of range, you know, you can kind of stack the cav right on top of your gun line and generally be fine. Generally. Ooh, do that. So yeah, this is kind of I guess I would call the standard Empire army build. I mean, you know, different factions would do different things. Like, you know, if I'm fighting against like Nurgle or generally Chaos, they don't have range, so I will have a line of halberds versus spearmen, or I might just make a completely gunfire build because you can do that. Because that's the really nice thing about the Empire. If you want to build a artillery-based army, you can. If you want to build a range-based army, you can. Melee-based army is a little on the weaker side, and a cav-based army is a little bit on the weaker side, but you can do it. It turns into a slugfest. But you notice how like nice and compact my army generally is. I like deeper formations. Just a note, deeper formations will not work with Hellstorm rocket batteries because there's always that one missile that will hit somebody by accident, air quotes. But I just kind of deployed like a Skaven army over here just because I don't like the rats. But this is what I mean. They like to spread out their forces entirely. They'll do this for anything. If they have range, cav, artillery pieces, they don't really care. Which is kind of something I don't necessarily like. Like, they'll eventually bunch up and get close and do their thing. But it's just something I don't really like. And of course, with gunpowder units, you always want to pay attention to the hills. Which we're on the hills a little bit here. Just place them on the hills a little bit. And artillery's gonna start firing, obviously. I don't care about this. I'm missing somebody. Nope, you're over there. So pretty much what they're gonna try to do, they're gonna try to envelop us, so probably just throw the swordsmen here, of course. Or the halberds, but halberds are on defense duty. And when the front line begins to fail, like I said, we can deploy these guys anywhere we want, where we think we need them. And just back off the handgunners. And that's pretty much how you play the Empire. Realistically, with this army build. You know, obviously, as the game goes on, you want to upgrade your handgunners to no iron sights, get better calves, get better artillery. But, you know, that's replacing stuff over time. And, you know, these are Skaven slaves, so they're just going to kind of melt to the gunfire, which is kind of the purpose of checkerboard. So hopefully we can see that before they crash in, before they all just go out immediately. So yep, they're enveloping us right here. and pretty much this what happens. So like they said, they're spread out here, and these handgunners are still going to shoot, but they're going to be shooting at their sides here. So they're going to inflict a little less melee or a little less friendly fire. You're fine, you're melee cav, you don't care. And since they're skating inside, they're going to be just running back and forth. And I do like mortars, because generally mortars don't inflict as much friendly casualties. It's kind of same with the knights here. I like the melee knights because I can just kind of keep them in combat, even though realistically I want them hammering and anviling the front line to help them support, which they are completely capable of doing. And then, you know, with the artillery, just focus on major points of interest with the infantry. And they did kind of sneak in here because there was a large gap, but you know, we always have like an extra unit or two that I can deploy. That's generally how I play. I always want to have reserves. That's just a Rome 2 thing I've had, or even Rome toward war itself. I always used or had reserves for troops. But even like Skaven Slaves, you know, once they get to combat with the handgunners, they'll kind of start taking losses here.
Battle protocols. Halberdiers.
Just boop, boop. Win this battle really quickly. They're just gonna keep running back and forth.
We are Sigmar's heirs. Engineer. Righty-ho. Handgunners.
And you know, you can like readjust your gun line as the battle goes on. You don't have to be rigid with your position. If you can adjust your gun line to be a little bit more efficient in other places, that's always a good idea to do. And we're also not using Karl because you don't really have to. Just make the battle go a little quicker. But as you kind of see, our front line kind of got a little damaged. They didn't get a lot of kills, but you're going to get a lot of your kills from your special units or from your range. So like, you know, Skaven Slaves have like no armor and low health, so obviously the mortars are doing work with the great cannons. But generally speaking, your gun line is going to be the one that carries you the battle. Generally speaking. Kill him before he routes. Maybe. Is he gonna escape? He might escape. Don't let him escape. I want that rat dead. No! He might escape. Lucky rat. Oh. Come on, rat. I'm not racist, I just want the rat dead. I swear.
Quickly! Wipe them out!
Rat dead. Now onto the campaign overview for all the legendary heroes. Obviously, Franz starts at the heart of the Empire in Altdorf. Since his factions rework, you know, he actually has a pretty funny campaign now, where before he kind of got bodied because he's kind of in a funky place where he is surrounded by enemies, but he's also surrounded by fairly weak allies. But the old Empire would pretty much crumble by like turn 10. So it was he actually kind of had a pretty hard campaign, but now it's fairly easy, depending how a certain vampire electric count progresses. But yeah, so your first enemies are the humans over here, to successionists. Successionists?
By Sigmar, no.
Rebels, whatever. And then you do have the Barrel Legion, which can sometimes be a threat. A lot of my campaigns lately, he actually will loop around to attack you for no reason, even though he has enemies here. You do have Elspeth, who does a pretty good job protecting your borders. Pretty much these minor factions aren't going to be an issue with you. Your enemy will be Sylvania, Nurgle, or Warriors of Chaos, Nurgle. These the Black Pit tribe greenskins generally do pretty good, as well as some Northkin invasions. Generally, your weaker Empire allies kind of hold out for like a decent number of turns. Really, by turn 20 or 30 is when they're going to start kind of crumbling. But you can always bring them back with the Empire. It's one thing he does. He can bring back his fallen factions. Don't have them confederated. Kind of neat way for him to play. Do you want to confederate all your weaker Empire allies, or do you want to just keep them around to have like buffer as defenses? It's up to you. It's a really nice way he can play. But pretty much his only goals is to pretty much just destroy the factions and raise loot or sack their settlements. And then long victory, he pretty much wants his empire back. Pretty easy campaign. His shtick is the electric count system, which Elspeth has as well. So pretty much each electric count seat will give you access to a state troop as well as the elector weapon. So as you confederate more elector counts, you'll have access to more state troops and so on and so forth. But with state troops, they are instant summons. They are basically regiments of renown. Once you hit recruit, they are in there in your army instantly, and generally they are a lot better than your base units. So they pretty much has access to 2 different instant recruitment troops, the regiment of renown and his electric count state troops. Also, he does have his electoral machinations, which is just currency you get for pretty much fighting battles and events and whatnot, and several different things. Send aid, unify, which will summon all electric counts, or confederation. Sorry, call arms is recruitment cost, duration, or local recruitment capacity. Jesus. And then he does have diplomatic talks, which is kind of like the pretty much the high elf diplomacy. He does have summoning electric counts, but you need all seats to do it, pretty much. Now for Balthasar Gelt's campaign, they actually changed his campaign significantly. Before, he used to actually spawn right next to Karl and pretty much had the exact same campaign, other than he's magic focused. He still is magic focused, and with his College of with his Colleges of Magic, he can greatly buff his wizards. Well, it has these pretty much essays that you get for battles, other things. So he's basically all about juicing up spellcasting. It's kind of, I would describe it as kind of like the workshop for spellcasters. And in order for him to get state troops, he has to pay money and research them. He doesn't have access to the electoral count system or the machinations. That's only a Karl Franz thing. But enemies wise, you're gonna pretty much have a bad Cathay people, ogres, dark elves, minor vampire count faction, but there's a dark elf faction here, as well as there's some Skaven in the distance here. I think that's them actually. There's some more vampire counts, but he's not necessarily surrounded. He does have a strong, can be strong, I should say, Cathay ally next to him. And once he reaches a certain point in the campaign, it would actually give him the option to go back home to a Pyfort, I think I'm saying that right, or stay and Cathay. So you can kind of play his campaign 2 different ways off the bat, which is really, really nice. But if you're into more magic focused campaigns, like you're a Steach shenanigan player, you're probably gonna enjoy playing Balthasar Gelt. I don't really like it because I'm not into magic, even though it's a fancy game. Fight me. Now for Markus Wulfhart, he essentially is deployed into the jungles of Vietnam, aka Illustria. The jungle dome, as some people call it, and so pretty much his first enemy is Skaven, minor Skaven faction. You do have Cathay next to you, which he can kind of get pretty good. Generally, he does really well. There is Lizardmen up here as well as minor orc faction, but the further you go up, there will be lizards because they'll just wipe everything out up here. You do have Corn next to you, some more Lizardmen, and you do have Bretonnians, which apparently you guys don't like each other. Don't know why. You're the only humans besides him that's on this continent and you guys don't like each other, kind of sucks, because having the allies would be kind of helpful. But yeah, so he's just about
Markus,
colonizing, and his Wulfhart hunters is is all about getting his legendary heroes, pretty much just by doing a bunch of quests as well, or not quests but objectives. And another one unique thing about his faction is that he does get imperial supplies pretty much as he's fighting. Pretty much more hostile he gets, the more supplies he gets, but the stronger the enemy gets. So he's kind of a challenging campaign, and I think generally people regard him as not a fun campaign. I don't think he's just well liked because it just constantly ramps up in difficulty. I think generally people consider him not a fun campaign. I don't really play him because I always play the Bretonians up here because he's usually gone within a couple of turns. But he just wants to fight people. It's kind of his shtick. His victory's conditions is get 100 claim and pretty much wipe everybody off here that isn't human. And then obviously controls the peninsula. Now for Volkmar the Grim, I actually kind of like his campaign, but he is deployed in the desert next to the Tomb Kings with some vampire counts, as well as he's kind of fairly close to a certain angry Scar brand. I'd say his campaign can get kind of interesting because he's kind of surrounded by passive aggressive enemies. Like he doesn't really have any direct enemies besides the minor faction and maybe Manfred. But I had times when the Lizardmen would declare war on me over here. The Dwarves got annoyed with me one time, as well as some Tomb Kings, and Arcan the Black is over here, I think. Arcan the Black? Is that his name? Whatever. So he does have an interesting campaign. Pretty much his thing is he's a nerd and he wants to steal books from people, especially Manfred, so it's okay. And pretty much you just gotta do a couple different requirements, such as fighting armies, and they'll give you kind of passive buffs for your campaign. Although I do think kind of needs a campaign rework a little bit because nothing's really changed. He doesn't really have anything special going on here. And the only way for him to get electric count state troops is by stealing. I'm not saying stealing, I'm saying stealing the books in the gash because he didn't do a very good job in the lore. And obviously his victory condition is find Order of Siege, who are way over here in the Drakenhof Enclave, which now with the new Siege being kind of super buffed, that actually might be an issue most of the time. He's gone pretty early, and then just pretty much take Empire back either through vassals or military allies, which is kind of weird because he spawns way over here and there's no way for him to get back at home, so it's kind of a weird long campaign victory. But whatever. Like I said, I think they need to kind of touch his campaign up. I think they kind of forgot he existed. I think even he forgot he existed. And then last but certainly not least, and by far probably one of my favorite legendary lords, would help to be Elspeth Draken in her campaign. She does get access to the Gardens of Moor, which is essentially just fast shovel points. It acts like an undercity. You can build like a garrison or certain other buildings when you get to that level. She does have access to the workshop pretty much for ranged units and making just super buff them. I mean, look at the handgunners, for instance, like, 10% missile strength, 25% more ammunition, 10% reload time reduction, exploding ammunition. Grip cannons get grape shots, mortars get snipe and stalk, which doesn't really matter because AI knows where they are, as well as you get extra, like rocket, so you can friendly fire even more with your Hellstorm batteries. You actually get 3 new rockets, so you can do friendly fire up to 3 more times per volley. And then there's the Amethyst Armory that just buffs her Amethyst unique units, which are super strong. You kind of get that when you reach the Imperial Gunnery, but they're just a lot better, and they have magical attacks too. They're a campaign unique, so that's why they haven't been in any like tier lists or any discussions, because they're only unique to her. Pretty much she's all about getting books from battles for the Imperial Gunnery, as well as in order for her to get Electrocon State troops, she has to research and buy into that, sadly. Except for one of the knight units. And then she does get a lot of uniques for, I don't know if we can see it in this quest or not, but she does get uniques for a engineer hero / lord. She got lots of quests for it to really juice them up. And then pretty much her victory conditions are destroy Sylvania, Warriors of Chaos, just get the Imperial Gunnery School to tier 2, which is pretty quick and easy, as well as, you know, take back the Empire for the long campaign victory. So it's pretty easy to do. You know, you start off with a pretty strong ally, so you don't have to watch your back. You find a lot of minor vampires as well as a minor orc. And then be wary, there will always be a savage orc army that spawns by Pyfdorf, and like 80% of the time they'll declare war on you. I had campaigns where they wouldn't until all your armies leave, and then they'll declare war and destroy your backlines. You could get some Dwarven allies if they last long enough, so you really don't have to watch this. Pretty much your number one enemy is going to be Vlad. And then eventually a Chaos Warriors, if you get to that point. Sometimes he's around, sometimes he's not. You sometimes fight the Wood Elves too. A pretty simple campaign. I would say her campaign is actually easier than Karl's because there's way less potential enemies, where Karl has to fight a little bit of everybody off the bat. I might have forgotten to mention, but he does have to fight Beastmen as well. And then you might notice something. You might notice a certain legendary lord is missing. I don't know who he is. All I know is he has one eye. But the way his campaign plays out is he hates everything that isn't Empire, and he'll fight to the death. And his big pro is he's always there, even though his faction is gone. He's a menace on the battlefield, and I would say he is the rightful heir of the Empire, and not this boy. Don't believe the lies. Believe the Imperial truth. And if you're kind of curious where everybody kind of starts on the campaign map, Karl starts there, Balthasar starts there, but you could also teleport back to the Empire. Wulfhart starts here. We'll just forget he exists. Same with Volkmar. He's over here, doesn't really exist. And then Elspeth spawns here, which she does kind of exist, I swear. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video we did. Please leave a like and subscribe for notifications when I go live, upload video, or do any other shenanigans on YouTube. And of course, hit the notification bell to actually get notified of said shenanigans on YouTube. Pretty much wraps up the... That pretty much wraps up the Empire, I think, at this point. We did the tier list and all their units, and as well as just did a little faction overview. If you guys want like videos of like more of the detailed units and how they perform versus like other units, you know, let me know. That might be a fun little series to do. Who knows?